Hello, everybody. For today's Thought Leader series, we're going to talk with Jeff Bowman here, Chief Experience Officer at Titan Machinery up in Fargo. Prior to joining Titan, Jeff worked at Caterpillar in e-business, and we're pleased to have Jeff. He's always keeps us on the edge of forward thinking in the dealership world. How are you doing today up there in Fargo, Jeff?
Doing very well, Mike. We've had, I'd say, at least a week of warmish weather, so spring has finally arrived. It's great to be in Fargo now.
Good. It looks like you got your home office set up there nicely.
Yeah, my home office, guest bedroom, sort of the catch-all room. So like many. Yep.
Very good. Well, before we get going, give us a couple words about Titan Machinery. If by chance we got someone who isn't familiar with Titan and the number of locations around, give us the bird's eye view on that.
Yeah, so Titan is in 11 states, running from really Minnesota down to Arizona. So we've sort of got from the Canadian border to the Mexican border. I'd say 5 ag states primarily up in the north. We're headquartered in the Fargo, North Dakota area. 80 stores overall in U.S., and we've even got 5 countries covered over in Eastern Europe. So we're pretty far flung, but all under that Titan Machinery banner, all driving toward how we go forward as one Titan as efficiently as we can and to take care of customers.
Very good. Excellent. Well, we'll get into the theme for today. I understand that in addition to a very large software implementation project, you also have your hands full with the COVID-19 task force. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I get the ERPs and the viruses. So thanks for pointing that out, Mike.
Yeah. Well, you're maintaining your hair color, so that's all good. Well, tell us a little bit about what the task force entails and what you're working on.
Yeah. So we realized right away when we jumped into this, as March ramped up and we started to see that this was going to have a real and immediate impact on business. In fact, David Meyer jumped in right away, our CEO, and began to put out a daily, or it was pretty much daily, as I recall, a daily email to the employees talking about what this meant to our company and what we knew about it so far, and just sort of the evolving situation, according to Dave. And when it was clear that staying on top of all of the guidance that's coming from the federal government, state governments, and even locally, and then communicating that to employees, out to customers, was going to be this ongoing, consideration. We said, look, this has got to be a team effort. We can't let Dave do this alone. So it was a team effort to say, okay, we got to come together as a task force, which of course Dave is on, and we're working together as a team. So we've got Dave, we've got our COO, we've got some HR representation, environment, health, and safety representation. Again, as the Chief Experience Officer, I'm looking at both the customer experience and communications, as well as the employee experience, and especially communications on the employee side, and just helping our HR team with some of that. So we get together, we meet on a weekly basis, but where it really happens is the one-on-one dialogues that we're having all week long. We put out, I'd say, about 3 updates a week to Titan employees. So typically on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we put out a COVID-19 update that says this is all the latest as we know it. We try to stay away from the fake news if we can, but we're trying to just get the information out there to the troops as quickly as we can, as effectively as we can. For example, even updates state by state where we have those. And then we put out alerts on an ad hoc basis if guidance comes down in a particular state, if actions are going to be taken. For example, we've just recently reopened our showrooms to customers. So we put out an alert. That alert goes to all the stores and sometimes specified to a particular location. And then the corresponding communications out to the customers. So it's, I think when we started out, we didn't think that it was going to be as much as it was going to be. We thought, well, you put out a weekly update and, let them know when something needs to change. But as everybody has come to understand, it's a rapidly evolving situation starting at the very top of our country and, even internationally. So we're trying to stay up with all that.
Right. Excellent. Sounds like a big job here. One of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today is you kind of have always sort of kept us thinking forward, thinking about what's next here, and wanted to kind of get into this. You had said previously that we've been in some situations that could be some forcing function changes in our dealerships and could forever change how dealers operate. Which was also something that our dealer advisory board was pondering here just recently too. And I know you have said that a dealership can emerge with a stronger business as a result of this if it wants to recognize the changes and trends that are out there. So that's what I wanted to explore with you today. What things might be lasting changes as a result of what's happened here last couple months. Make sense to you?
Yeah, very good. And,
okay.
I'll start, I guess I'll paraphrase, I think it was Churchill that said, don't let a crisis go to waste or something like that. It's a very rough paraphrase, but there are things we are learning as businesses, as individuals, as we go through this, that are worth maintaining when we get to that, what I hope is a new normal, not the old normal. And so you mentioned my time with Caterpillar regarding e-business, leading the customer-facing e-business side of it. And so I'll start there because it's something that I continue to be very passionate about, not for digital's sake, but for the sake of the customer, for the sake of the employee. And I look now, I think the last number I saw was that over 2019 e-commerce order volume has increased like 50% this year over last year because of what's going on with COVID-19, which is massive. I mean, if you think about channel growth, and especially in our industry, which is pretty much a drumbeat. I mean, certainly commodity prices and all types of market factors impact it, but it's a pretty steady drumbeat outside of market fluctuations, weather, things like that. To see a channel like online grow 50% in 1 year, a channel that was already growing so incredibly fast just spiked. And I see this at home because our groceries are now showing up at my front door. Something that I guess I'm the digital bigot that I am. I will never have our groceries delivered. And then our groceries started showing up at my front door. And I looked over at my wife and I'm like, why are the groceries showing up at the front door? And she says, this is the way everybody's doing it now, honey. Like you got to get with the program. And so with that kind of an increase, I think we need to understand that. We also saw, by the way, at Titan, our e-commerce, our online sales began to spike as well. And this wasn't because we were pushing our customers toward e-commerce. This was organic. This was customers realizing that, hey, the groceries are showing up and everything else is showing up in a box. So why can't I get my tractor part in a box? So with all of that, as things do return to normal, some customers are going to return to the counter and some aren't. And I think if a dealer has not been aggressive previously to getting an e-commerce capability, an effective e-commerce capability in place, or maybe as importantly, e-commerce capability that they have, assuming it's a solid experience to customers, now's the time to do it. So definitely, if anybody needs a forcing function for encouraging their team, their parts team, and their customers to get out there and use the internet in order to find the information they need and to buy parts. Now is absolutely the time to do that. And if I add to that, I've zeroed in on e-commerce because it's just amazing to me how rapidly it's even retail e-commerce has grown. But there are multiple digital channels. So you look at you think about digital websites and mobile apps and text and social media and all the channels on social, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And then of course email communications, and then the store. All that needs to start to come together. So the digital channel is now an extension, and we need to think about it like that, as an extension of the store. And that's pretty exciting. But let's not go back to the way it was, where in some cases we may have been begrudging to say, well, you can get that online. Let's go ahead and encourage that and get really good at it.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that in some operations where there was reluctance to do that, maybe on the part of employees, some of that has now changed. They're seeing how effective it is. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to extend that, build on that a little bit. So now think about it in terms of, and the people that geek out on digital, you'll hear things like multi-channel and omni-channel and things that make you fall asleep. But the concept of omni-channel is all about, I guess in our world, the customer searches online, they make a request by text message, they get an email confirmation, and then they pick it up at the store. So you've got multiple channels, digital and in person, and this is what we've come to expect as consumers. It's what our customers now, growers, will expect. It's certainly what their kids expect, but it needs to be orchestrated. It's not what I just described. A simple, hey, look it up online, send a text message, get a validation via email, an update when my order is on its way. Hey, we've shipped it, or it's ready at the counter in this case, and now come in and pick it up when you're on your way in town. That takes a high level of orchestration. So now imagine the world where, and I'm not saying this happens, at any of our dealerships, but now a customer wants to place an online order, and maybe something goes wrong, or maybe they call to check on the online order. Right now, think of this. They're calling to check on the online order. Well, there might be a problem there. Like, why do they have to call to check on the status of an online order, right? I don't call Amazon and ask about my order. So, and what could happen, like, oh, this is an online order, right? Like, rolling eyes, shaming the customer, maybe grumbling a little bit, like, oh, yeah, you wouldn't have all these problems if you weren't trying to make your, purchases online. And I guess, and the thing that always keeps me maybe a little sharp about this, or maybe a little edgy about this and how I describe it, is it's really easy for the customer to say, Shoop never makes me feel like this when I order from them online. As a dealer, right? As somebody that's out there really trying to demonstrate a premium experience, high quality parts, that just all together, I can't have a customer thinking, man, Shoop makes me feel great when I order from them online, but my local dealer always a little bit grumbly about it. So yeah, to your question, Mike, I think we've got to jump in there and celebrate that, and we've really got to think about it as an extension of the store experience. I mean, it's not something separate. It's a completely integrated experience. Add to that things like curbside pickup, drop boxes, of course shipping from the store. Always that as Titan has had our front doors locked, we've been fully staffed and serving customers, but we've had our showrooms and parts counters closed off to the public really until just this Monday, when we began to reopen those doors in waves. Some dealers you even see are starting to use automated lockers for parts pickup, so that 24/7 you slide a credit card or you enter in a confirmation number and you pick it up. You know, the dealership closes at 5 or at 6 and you show up at 6:05 or 7 o'clock or what have you, you still get your part. So and of course that's very safe as you're dealing with viruses and whatnot. So these are ways that are all more convenient for customers. They'll be an advantage to dealers that say, you know, I think we need to keep pushing on that as we kind of reopen, if you will. Let's not go all the way back to the way it was. And of course, you know, some of those things dovetail really nicely with digital, where it just all works together to give the customer a great experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For someone who's maybe a little later to the game with the tools that maybe didn't have the advanced tools that you had, how long could that, in your experience, take to get back up to speed to do these things?
Yeah, so that's that could be a really that could be a spectrum for certain. I think for those that have been out there on the front lines of e-commerce, getting an e-commerce system plugged in can take years. At least some of them I've been involved with have taken that long, and you know, I hope that's not because I've been involved with them. But the good part of it is that today most OEMs have really solid like e-commerce parts platforms that they're essentially rolling out to dealers for dealers to leverage. And I'll say, look, they're not perfect, right? You've got to provide that feedback to the OEM, but for the most part, they're very capable platforms. Whether you're running green, red, orange, it doesn't matter. They're capable e-commerce platforms. And so I'd say from an adoption standpoint, just the dealer being proactive and working with the OEM to get that set up and get it running could save you a lot of time, as opposed to having to run off and develop your own system, which could take a considerable amount of time and money. So that's definitely important. You know, I think there are other customer communications tools that are being commonly used. So whether it's just the good old-fashioned telephone, or you know, that's an iPhone or an Android anymore, so it's not so old-fashioned. Text messaging, emails happen a lot. I think you know, I was chatting last week with Casey Neiman over at AgriSync, and he mentioned to me that they're really seeing a spike in dealer readiness for a coordination of all that, because as you start to think of requests coming in via text message and requests then coming in by email and by phone call and even by video call, and somehow that needs to be coordinated, and a lot of dealer management systems don't have the sophistication to do that, but there is software out there to help. You know, AgriSync is just one of them, but there's software out there that will help coordinate some of that can be rolled out very efficiently. So I would say, within a month, the dealers that have been late to the game, if they have the right coordination with their OEM and they work with some partners that are used to working with dealers, within a month or 2 months, you could be up and running with some pretty effective tools. So jump on it.
Yeah, it can catch up quickly.
Yeah, I think so.
Step behind. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, great question. I think so.
Yeah, very good. And then, you know, in terms of things that might be different or could be different, let's talk about employees and communication with employees for a moment. What might be a way that we don't want to go back to?
Yeah, right. I think this is a real double-edged sword here, because one of the things that we've realized, you know, with this kind of setup, right, where, you know, welcome to my guest bedroom for a discussion, we realize that we can still keep working remotely. As an example, it's sometimes more productive, it's sometimes less productive, but in every case, your kids are definitely going to drive you crazy if you got kids around the house. 3 minutes before this call, I had a kid like jet in the door and run over to the printer, to pull something off and then head back through. And I halfway through saying, you can't do that, I was like, I'm just dad, right? Like they can do whatever they want in this, in this home office. And so we have discovered, though, you can get a lot of business done working in new ways. So flipping maybe back over to a little closer to the dealership, we've made some additional allowances at Titan. Everything from folks that have challenges with childcare situations, folks that are up against, paid time off limits and so forth. We've adjusted policy and procedures to be flexible to that. So I think that there are some things like that are employee benefits that maybe that's something that we should hold on to. Many dealers have staggered shop and counter shifts as well in order to minimize exposure between employees. So I think that that's another creative these are creative ways to solve the problem. When this started happening, though, it reminded me, the staggered shifts in particular, it reminded me of a discussion that I had back in December at a dealer conference with, it was another red dealer who, and this was, far before coronavirus became an issue locally. And they described how they were staggering shifts and they were moving to 4-day work weeks, and shared that it was having a great impact on service technician satisfaction. So think about that a little bit. We're now, because of a virus, we're now starting to do some of the things that some maybe more forward-thinking dealers had already begun to do for an employee satisfaction reason. And so, it connected a few dots for me. I think that before we pull all the way back in a situation like this, whether it's scheduling, whether it's working remotely, and again, a lot of folks are going to be very eager, including me, to return, to the office where I have some control. But I think we would be very wise to retain some of the flexibility that our employees have actually come to appreciate. And so let's not assume that they appreciate and want all of it, or that they want it forced on them. But let's ask the question when it comes to some of the flexibility of, hey, if I work in an office, can I work at home a day or two, or can I work that out with my boss? Is that okay? If I work in a shop, can I work on a staggered schedule if that works better for me and is also good for the company? And why wouldn't we hold on to those things if it's good for business and it's good for our employees? It's good, and it's good for our customers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, good point. You had also shared that you believe that there's going to be some lasting expense reduction by having learned some of the things that you have over the last, let's say 6 weeks or so.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So as customers find more of the information that they need online, and as teams learn how to work together virtually, there's an opportunity to reduce time and expense related, especially to driving and flying around. As a dealership, you're out there taking care of customers, and there's a fair bit of that has to be right there in the dirt, face to face, or on the machine, and that's not going away. However, there is, I'm making up a number here, but I'm convinced that 10 to 15% of the expenses related to travel of all sorts can be eliminated for good. And that's a lot of money. And so we need to be thoughtful about that. And I think if I'm the CFO, I would be very interested to know how we could take that immediately to an expense savings and to the bottom line, just by being smarter about how we work together and interact with customers. The trick is, it has to be done with a clear plan for how you're still going to take care of customers and work together. It can't just be, hey, look, we seem to be pretty good at this. Let's drop our expenses by 10 or 15%. It's got to be, here are the ways we think we can, very thoughtfully and effectively train customers, keep customers informed. Again, maybe it's through some of the tools we briefly touched on, a video support tool to make sure that I've got the right part before I send a technician out, has always been good business and can save a lot of time and money for both a customer and for the dealer. And so if we stop looking at that as an optional way to do business and we incorporate that into our day-to-day processes every time, we're going to save a lot of money automatically. And while we're saving money, we're going to have a more satisfied customer. So why wouldn't we just lock in those savings right now and let this be, in this way, we've actually moved back to an even better way of running our business. Mm-hmm. More cost effective.
Yep. We had our quarterly meeting today, and I've forgotten the numbers already, or because I can look them up. But our digital media director had pulled out how our Zoom minutes went up from January 1st, 2020 to what they were at the end of last one. And they were staggering. They were unbelievable. I was curious whether if you've seen more customers far more receptive to doing this than they had been or would be otherwise without the situation that we've seen here lately.
Yeah, we certainly have, and again, we've used a few different tools to do it, but I think the video support capability in particular is catching on, and it's just becoming, whereas before it just wasn't accepted, it's now becoming, it kind of moved to a necessity. And then I think people are beginning to see it not just as a necessity, it's a benefit. It truly, again, when you describe, if I'm a grower out in the field and I've got an issue with a machine and it's making a certain sound, or I've identified, where the issue is, but I'm not exactly sure the step to take, and I can point my iPhone at it, and I can have a conversation with a service technician, or I can point at my monitor and have a precision farming specialist describe to me how to calibrate on the new 1200 series monitor real time, instead of waiting for a guy to get in a pickup truck and drive out and pump, 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 and say, okay, you're all good now. If you think about something like that, 95% of the time was actually involved in the logistics of it, not in the solution of it, or in the solving of it. And so I think as growers are starting to see that, hey, this is a lot better for me from a time perspective, from a cost perspective, and I don't need to do the math for the dealership. I mean, we will, but it's clear benefit to the dealership as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. Any with your futurist hat on, are there anything else that our dealers here in the United States ought to be thinking about right now from your standpoint, based on what you've seen and thought about?
Yeah, well, there's two things in particular that specific to the coronavirus situation that come to mind. And one of those is where we've had a consistent drumbeat for safety internally, and that continues, especially in a business like ours where you've got service techs out there using high power tools on high horsepower machinery. It can be a pretty dangerous situation, and so I think what's been interesting as part of this is that to see a company rallying around the health and safety of its employees, because whereas before you didn't think so much about the person in the office, maybe paper cuts never really made the leaderboard in terms of things that you needed to be worried about, and so it was like, just don't worry about that. Just let's keep our guys out in the field safe, guys and gals out in the field safe. Now we're having different discussions with each other. So, we're saying things like, be safe and stay healthy. We are genuinely more concerned with each other as employees, as people. And that's coming through, and it's also reaching our customers and our suppliers. So, coronavirus by its very nature, by its behavior, makes this bigger than a store or a farm. It goes broader to the community and so forth. And so, it makes me think, there's certainly a bigger role that we can play working together. Remember, agriculture still ranks among the most hazardous industries, right? Think about that. I mean, this is a family-oriented, in most cases, a family-oriented business, whether I'm talking about a farm or a dealership. And so to bring a higher level of safety to these family-oriented businesses is a pretty high calling, and I think we should step up to the challenge and really go after that together. So I think that safety piece is one, and then the other one, I think in marketing you hear all the time how more and more, I should say, how trust and authenticity is really at a premium. It's becoming more and more important, even in the digital age, where you have less of the less of the face-to-face interaction. Customers need to understand that your brand is very authentic, that they can trust you, that you share a certain set of values and principles with them, etc. And so, I think what's really cool, one of the cool things that's happened as a part of this whole pandemic is that, we're getting to know each other and our families even better. I've been on multiple calls where kids have run through. I've had, dogs, barking and cats jumping up on the computer and walking around. And or we're walking through our kids' classrooms that also happen to be in our kitchens, right? And it's awkward at first, but my main point to all that is it's who we really are. And your dog barks on a video call, or the dog run, or the kids run through. It happens all the time on a farm, right? We're used to it all the time when our team members are out there on the farm where real life is happening. And I think it's okay to bring that real life, our real lives, a little bit closer to our customers. So we still have to be professional. We have to be efficient, but let's not lose what we've gained by connecting in new ways with each other as team members, as business partners, and certainly with our customers. Let's retain that, because it's important. Not only getting through this current crisis, but it's important to build that trust that's going to take us, through, that's going to carry us through so many seasons going forward, and just make us better at working together to solve problems.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Makes sense. Very good. We appreciate your time here today, Jeff, and letting us think of some of what's being discussed up there at Titan as we're looking out over the industry. By all means, wish you well with the reopening of the stores, and I hope everyone is safe and healthy, as I'm sure they will be.
Yeah, appreciate it. Nice to talk to you again, Mike.
Yep. You take care. We'll talk soon.
All right. Stay safe.
Too.